Joining me is Jaydeep Barman, who is the founder and CEO of Rebel Foods, India's and the world's largest internet restaurant, and much more.
Even today, 90% of restaurants close down within 3 years because of the real estate cost.
Biryani across certain regions should be the same versus in other regions should not. How have you thought about some of these?
No biryani is made on order. It'll take 2 hours. But I believe as customers will always love more convenience. If the quality can be maintained, there is no reason why quick food delivery would not happen.
As consumers, we get to eat the delightful food, yet we don't get to understand what happens on the back end.
As a company, we've never used artificial color, artificial flavors, preservatives in our food. Maybe our gross margin is slightly lower, but we'll never compromise on it. Today we have about 9 national brands. All of them are doing well, not because we've done something extraordinary, but we killed the ones that didn't do well early. Today we have 6 brands more than 150 crore each. So the way we think about it is the experience has to be same. That's how brands are built. But there can be regional nuance. And I think out of everything, people can copy technology, building a kitchen, a supply chain. But copying a culture at scale is the hardest.
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I have with me an extremely special guest. Joining me is Jaydeep Barman, who is the founder and CEO of Rebel Foods, India's and the world's largest internet restaurant, and much more. I'm very, very excited to be chatting with you, Jaydeep. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I've been a big fan of your commentary and your podcasts, and so glad to be here.
I'm so glad to hear that because it means a lot coming from you. It was 2.5 years back when we first spoke, and I was as thrilled to chat with you then as I am today. You're not a common person to find on the internet to hear from either, but what you have built is absolutely marvelous and an inspiration to so many founders. I'm hoping we can learn a lot from that today. Where I want to start, Jaydeep, is today, you spent more than a decade building Rebel. If you had to share learnings for future founders who are building in the food industry, because food is one space which feels very easy to build in, yet is extremely complicated given the nature of your business. I would love to just summarize at the top of mind what learnings for food businesses are, and then we can go into nuances of, different kinds of brands that you have built, how you've scaled, etc.
Yeah, I think, first of all, before Rebel, I've never been a restaurateur. Nobody in my family has ever been a restaurateur. So I'm just from Calcutta, where people grow up on food, and then the Calcutta rolls and things like that. So my understanding has always been, over the years been around, how our business went from one place to another. It is less about, I don't have figures and surveys and data around this. But I think a couple of things. So one is, and this is common knowledge, that every 100 kilometers food changes in India. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it, over the last 10, 15 years, every day of our lives. So, today is Makar Sankranti, okay? But there are 3 different food occasions that are happening across India. At least 3, maybe more. One is Pongal, which is south. Mm-hmm. Second is Makar Sankranti, which is west, etc. Lohri and all of that. And north, again, a combination of Lohri and a couple of other things. Yeah. And then the food is totally different. Now we have a brand called Lunchbox, which is now celebrating all 3 today nationally. So in south, if you open Lunchbox, you will see the Pongal specialties. Mm-hmm. In west and north, you'll see Lohri specialties and things like that. So this is why I believe our business, can meet the customer where they are. Mm-hmm. Most food businesses are built around brands, one brand. Yeah. Okay, and you build that brand over 50 years, 100 years. McDonald, Starbucks, Domino's, etc., etc. But the way India operates, unless you have a platform, you don't meet the customer where they are. And the customers are all different places, regionally, festival-wise, and all of that. As a Bengali, I never knew there were 2 Navratris in India, because I've never had vegetarian. Durga Puja meant actually, meat eating for us. But later on, at Rebel, I realized that 70% of India, which is otherwise non-vegetarian, become vegetarian during Navratri. And it happens not only, October, November, also March, April. And, again, we had, being a platform, we've been able to cater to that. So that's a big theme, across India, different, different religious festivals, non-religious ones, like Valentine's Day is a big one, We sell heart-shaped pizzas in like thousands during Valentine's Day. Okay. Christmas, we sell, plum cakes, again in hundreds of thousands during Christmas. So religious, non-religious festivals, regional, etc. So that's one. And if you build a platform, you are able to sort of cater to all of these occasions, so that's one. Secondly, food is the only consumer good where people move between value and indulgence, single serve and group serve all the time. Every other consumer goods, you are either driving a Mercedes or a Maruti, right? Not at the same time, but you either wearing an Armani or a like a 200 rupee t-shirt, right. Depending on whether you're a premium customer, mass customer, all of that. You are either using, fancy soap or Lifebuoy, And that's how FMCG businesses have been created to target a particular segment of customers, premium, mass, somewhere in between, all of that. But food is the only consumer category, if you think about it, where you have that 20 rupee chai and also go to a fine dine restaurants, in the same week or sometimes in the same day. So the way we thought about food is like on one axis you have single serve to group serve, the other axis value to indulgence. So your weekday lunch is your single serve value. You don't want to splurge a lot, couple of $100, quick meal between meetings, etc. So that's your, bottom left. Your top right is your group serve and indulgence, which you weekend, you want to go splurge with your family, friends, all of that. Sure. Group serve value is you're ordering samosa or pizza at office, Single serve indulgence, sometimes you want to have a nasi goreng or a, something fancy or a sushi or something fancy. And people move between these 4 boxes all the time. So as a result, in food, customers are not segments. Their use cases are. So, and that has been the big insight in our business, that if we create a platform, we can be in all these 4 boxes. Food businesses have these troubles or struggles like Monday afternoon empty and Saturday night, full. But if we are able to cater to the 4 boxes, we are as relevant on Monday afternoon as we are on a Saturday night. So that has been the big revelation for us over the years. So I would say, and when you put these 2 things together, different food, different culture, different, festivals, and these 4 boxes, it's a concoction of a terrific industry, where innovation is like, should be your business as usual. Like, our teams are always thinking about what is the next festival that is coming, what can we, and sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. But the process of, addressing this variety, both in terms of the regular eating, indulgence eating, festivals, etc., it's a fascinating place to be. Sorry, it's a long answer, but every time I get talking about food, I get a little sort of carried away.
No, I think this is extremely helpful and very fascinating, as you mentioned, because the diversity of eating and the different customer journeys. For the same customer, there are 21 meals in a week, right? How can you serve all? And I think the Rebel sort of entire cohort can serve all of those. I have a Beiruz biryani on a Saturday evening, and I also have like a very interesting, oven story pizza on a Sunday afternoon because I want to indulge. And similarly, lunchbox, good bowl meals on Monday afternoons, Tuesday
Yeah.
afternoons. So it's phenomenal what you've built. I want to add some more context to the conversation before we proceed, right? If my data is right, Rebel is today more than 1,500 crores in revenue. There are 450 kitchens across 70 sort of cities, 10 countries, right? That's massive scale. And it's taken you more than 10 years, some 12, 13 years to get here. Can you, by sheer virtue of scale, add more context to what are the number of brands, how large is the entire group to begin with, so that when we go deeper, there is more nuance to it?
Yeah. So I would say, there are three layers in Rebel's business. The first one is an operating system, which is basically the platform of the business. So our kitchens, our technology, our supply chain, our culinary innovation. These are the four constituents of that platform. Over time, we built smart kitchens across India and a couple of other countries. We connected all of them through a homegrown technology stack that is quite unique by itself. We have a supply chain which can go to any corner of India today and a few other countries as well. And then finally, we have a culinary innovation center, which is always thinking about, how to create, next, like I was talking about, Pongal or Ramadan is coming in March. And this innovation center is always thinking about what new dish can we launch, what new dish can we scale across our network. So that's our platform.
Right.
On this platform, we run brands, which is the second layer of our business. Now, the brands are of three types. So one is our own brands that we have built ourselves from scratch, like Beiruz and Oven Story and a couple of others. Faasos, our first brand, and so on. Then the second is where we've taken on third-party brands on this platform, either through acquisition or through licensing, like Wendy's, world's second largest burger brand. Now we have pan-India license for that. Smoor, so we now own 100% of Smoor, which is every time I used to go to Bangalore, I was in complete awe of that brand, and now I'm, Rebel is a very proud owner of Smoor. So that's the second bucket. Every time we license or invest in or acquire a brand, we then, put it across the platform, across kitchens and so on, so on the supply chain and so on. So the third bucket is where we partner with brands that we either don't own or we don't have license, but basically they ride on our platform. So they come onto our kitchens, use our supply chain, use our technology, etc. So a couple of brands like that is ITC MasterChef, Taco Bell, Anand Sweets from Bangalore, Marwa Donuts, Naturals Ice Cream, etc. So that's the brand layer. Our own brands, licensed / invested brands, and this sort of partner brands. On top of that, we have the final layer, which is distribution. So that all these brands are distributed through aggregators in India and otherwise, like Swiggy, Zomato, IRCTC, increasingly ONDC, Magic Pain, and all of that. And we also built our own distribution through EatSure, which is, the proposition of EatSure is it is the only, let's say, food delivery app where you can mix and match brands because it comes from the same kitchen platform. So these are the three layers of our business. So if I have to say, as you said, you have 400 odd kitchens and so on. We run in total about 45 brands in these three boxes, but not all 45 brands are
on all kitchens.
All kitchens. On an average, our kitchens have about 12 brands. Again, a mix and match of these. Yeah, and then our distribution, as I said, across quite fragmented between the aggregators as well as our own and the new emerging distribution. Quick food delivery is a new distribution that is coming up, and these days I am as excited as I was in 2014-15 when food delivery was happening.
Yeah.
Quick food, still the jury is out, where it'll end up. But whenever a disruption or a destabilization happens in an industry, it's a tremendous opportunity to reimagine the future. And we are now in a place where we can actually shape the future to some extent, I believe. I'm not saying that with any kind of arrogance, but just that based on our experience in seeing food evolve in India, we believe we are in a unique position to, sort of capture the new sort of way of delivering food.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's super comprehensive. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it brings a lot of clarity to me as well, and hopefully to all the listeners. I'd love to get your vantage point on what you were mentioning, right? So when you started the concept of cloud kitchens, that itself was a huge revelation, right? Now cloud kitchen is a norm, but at the time it wasn't. And alongside that, you witnessed, I'm guessing, multiple innovations in food. You've seen the food delivery wave, you've seen the cafe wave, there's a strong QSR wave now. You started with QSR but decided to do cloud first, and I'm guessing there are going to be more QSR presence for your brands as well. Considering, a founder will always go through this dilemma of, staying focused with what you're doing versus what the ecosystem is going through. So if you can perhaps, summarize the 10, 13 years of you seeing how food in India has evolved in the ecosystem, right? In your case, it's been cloud first. In other cases, it's been delivery, it's been QSR, it's been a lot of these coffee brands have popped up, right? And they are doing multiple cafes in the country, and we have Starbucks doing like 350 stores, etc. in the country. How have you seen the entire landscape? If I had to ask you to zoom out and maybe talk to us about the evolution, I'd love to hear that from you.
Yeah, so I think the evolution happened, I would say there were 3 stages in the last decade or so what we have seen. So the first was the advent of sort of the international QSRs. So that was between, let's say, 2000 to 2012, 13. Domino's went public around 2009-10. Before that, McDonald's was there. So there were like a lot of these brands that came in. Burger King came around 2013-14, if I remember correctly. And, there was Pizza Hut, Papa John's and all these guys. And funnily enough, India never had a, homegrown, maybe Haldiram's was the only exception, homegrown national chain, right? It was all these, QSRs coming from abroad, people taking their franchisee and growing. So that was, I believe, the first wave of organizing the industry in the beginning of this century. Then, but everybody, I don't know of anybody who didn't want to open a restaurant at one point in time in their life. Everybody wants to open a restaurant, right? But I think the fundamental difference between US and India, I believe, is that in the US, real estate is cheap, labor is costly. In India, real estate is costly, labor is cheap. It's exactly, that's why quick commerce happens in India. WeWork works in India. None of these things work in the US. And I believe that is why cloud kitchens have flourished in India over the last. So that was a second wave, delivery-led sort of food chain formation, let's say. That's because fundamentally high street real estate in India is the costliest in the world. Like even for Domino's in India, which is a very well-run company, the rent to sales ratio in India is double that of Domino's in the US.
Oh, wow.
So India has the costliest real estate in the world. Okay. Now, and cheapest labor in the world. So someone was telling me the other day, McDonald's in the US, 70% of the sales happen through drive-through. That's because you can put up big stores, you can create parking, and people can drive through, etc., etc. In India, McDonald's revenue, if I'm not mistaken, 45-50% is delivery, which is in the US that's 10%, because US labor is costly, and getting food delivered is costly. So you have delivery fees, and all of that. In India, you don't have the space for drive-throughs because the infrastructure is very costly in India. But labor is cheap, so delivery happens in India. So this is what I have seen happening between 2014 and let's say 2020, where this whole delivery evolution came through, and with that advent of cloud kitchens and all of these things have happened. And then the first national companies came through. Like we were probably the first homegrown Indian brand to become national, right? and then Boxed did it, Cure Foods did it, and a couple of others did it. And in South there was this brand called Thalakapatti Biryani. They went to like 200 stores, etc. So that was the second way where also the homegrown people after they found an angle. Like even today, 90% of restaurants close down within 3 years because of the real estate cost. People don't get over the hump of this big fixed cost in India. So that's why I'm a big believer of an omni-channel way of building brands in India, restaurant brands in India. The third, let's say, evolution came during COVID. Before COVID, our business and overall restaurant industry was concentrated around the top 10, 15 cities. Bombay, Bangalore, and all that. During COVID, youngsters went back home and they taught their parents how to use more. And we've seen in our business, every city that we opened after COVID, we were like pleasantly surprised. Today, some of our highest volume kitchens are in Banaras, in Patna, in Amritsar, and places like that. And food reached, I believe, all parts of India, at least 200 plus cities in India today, during COVID and post-COVID. And now this is an ingrained habit. So every new city we are opening, like yesterday we opened a second kitchen in Ranchi, and then we opened Bhatinda this week, and so on and so forth. So and we are like, every time we push the boundary, we see, okay, will it happen? We get surprised, So I believe these have been, I know again a long answer, but these would be the three, stages of evolution. So started with QSRs, international QSRs, then this omni-channel model that came about with delivery being at the forefront, and then third, now food business can be built at a national scale. By last count, Domino's is in, I think, 240 cities. We are 75. It's just scratching the surface, Sure. So this is, it's a 500, 600 city business in India today. Massive opportunity. I'm more excited than ever. And the new ways of distributions are coming.
Yeah.
Tech-led, world's first, because anything that requires infrastructure building in India gets leapfrogged to something digital. That's why it's a very interesting place to be in. Food wise, delivery wise, distribution wise, it's very, very interesting.
Well, that's again very, very fascinating. A lot of like foundationally strong understanding around the food business. On quick food delivery or ONDC, some of these more emerging trends that aren't out there, how much of the job of an entrepreneur like you is to maybe predict or if not predict, be in tune with these trends, right? We keep hearing maybe Korean food is a trend, etc., right? How do you as a founder respond to these trends versus, let's say, forward looking, have an assumption that this is how food will play out and that's how we will build the business? How have you sort of made these choices over the years?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And, it's my job these days is primarily that. And there are some areas where we want to be followers and some areas we want to shape. Like, for example, whether Korean would be big or not, we want to be a follower. We want to see, whether what happens, etc., and then follow, because we have the innovation machine through which we can build a Korean brand, we believe, and,
etc.
And so on. But then there are areas where we believe we can shape, like, for example, health, and we believe that it's at that intersection point where we not only should be a taker, but also shape consumer behavior by being more responsible, because we can do it, right? With our supply chain and all of that, we can actually take like what has happened on, let's say on packaged foods, or like for example, what Whole Truth has done, and a couple of other brands have done. I think that same wave is coming now in food, and we are in a good position to actually shape that future. We have a brand in UAE called 500 Calorie Project, and it is doing tremendously well. And the same store sales growth of that brand has been 200% over the last year for us in Dubai. In a market where, world's most renowned brands are there, right? So we feel very confident to bring that brand now to India and then scale it. So there we want to shape the market and we want to be in the forefront of that change. In terms of distribution, see, we in business school we studied this innovator's dilemma concept, okay, where basically what happens is if there is an incumbent which is at a certain quality, okay, a new guy comes at a lower quality, but with a higher slope of quality improvement, and then eventually this new guy disrupts the incumbent. Like if you think about last 100 years, this has happened in all industries. Like for example, camera. We used to have Nikon and Canon and all these like really fancy DSLRs, etc. Smartphones came, lower quality camera, but they become good enough, and now only the photographers use those. And today we have some of those cameras here, but 90% of the people are using smartphones. And people used to say it's not going to happen because smartphone will never be as good as a Nikon or a Canon or so on and so forth. Not only here, every industry this has happened. Like if you think about restaurants, QSRs came exactly. There used to be chef-led restaurants. QSRs came and said lower quality, but the quality became good enough, along with convenience, that all value in the last 50 years was created in QSRs, not in fine dine restaurants. Like McDonald's came, disrupted, and earlier used to be like gourmet pizza. Domino's came and disrupted, right? They start at a lower quality, but the slope of quality improvement is higher, and then that is how disruption happens. Like fundamentally, people will always love more convenience if you can match the quality or be at the ballpark. So people are talking about quick food delivery cannot happen, because it's not fresh, etc. But if you go to a McDonald's, you want your burger in 1 minute. You don't say it's not fresh because it's being made in front of you. It's always made in batch. Good cooking is made in batch. Like you go to Paradise Biryani, if you walk into it, you ask for a biryani, it gives it to you in 30 seconds. Because it's already prepared in a batch. They've prepared a 100-kilo batch there. So fundamentally, there is no, like, if it is given quickly, doesn't mean it's not fresh. It means it's been prepared in batch, right? Some things will always be made fresh, but I'm saying there is enough depth in that made in batch and served quickly category, and people will always love convenience. Otherwise, QSRs won't be there. I believe QFD will have its place. Quick food delivery, maybe not for sushi or some like really fancy cuisine, but for biryani is made in batch. That's when the biryani is best. When you make a 100-kilo batch, no biryani is made on order, because then the biryani is not good. Because if you ask for a biryani and I start making biryani, it's not good. It'll take 2 hours, first of all. But if it is made in batch at 7 p.m., someone comes at 7:30, you give it just like that, right? So fundamentally, and there is a lot of talk about whether freshness is compromised, etc., etc. No, But I believe there is, as customers will always love more convenience. If the quality can be maintained, I believe there is no reason why quick food delivery would not happen. Again, the jury is still out how exactly it will happen, and I am the last one to promote, bad quality food, because, when I go home and if I see my daughter is having an oven story pizza, I feel good, and I don't want to put anything in that pizza, and my daughter is having it, I'll feel guilty. That's the last thing I want in my life. And as a result, as a company, we've never used artificial color, artificial flavors, preservatives in our food, right? Maybe our gross margin is slightly lower, but we'll never compromise on that. As long as we are true to that, mission. We believe quick food can happen and we can play a role. Now, in what shape and form, etc., it'll evolve. But it's a very exciting time.
Yeah.
Again, very long answer, but
No.
but it's fascinating what can happen.
Yeah, no, loving the long answers. Please keep them going. Looking forward, are there any things that you like beyond health that you feel will be a doubling down force within food? Like, do you think the QSR wave is back because many food brands are now going QSR first, irrespective of going, let's say even cloud first, right? That's a trend that's coming up. Health you focused upon, quick food delivery is one. But just to bring a closure to this loop, are there any forward-looking things that fascinate you as a company that you are focusing on more than the others?
See, one thing is that that this concept of, so basically when I said that there are areas where we want to shape the industry, those would be areas where we have a right to win. Okay, so if someone tells me that if we open bunch of pizza stores exactly like Domino's, do we have a right to win? Maybe not.
Sure.
But can we bring 10 brands on the high street together, which has not been done in the past? So that's not only QSR, but a food court on the high street. Yeah. So basically you have a burger brand, a pizza brand, and a biryani brand, and a momo brand all together in one location.
Yeah.
You go as a family. So like this has happened in malls. Like you go to a mall, sometimes you go to individual restaurants, sometimes you go to the food court, right? And this is a shaping that we want to do because we have a right to win here.
Sure.
So we've started last year. Today we have about 5-6 of these locations where you walk into a high street store, like a QSR store, but you get
Multi-brand.
Yeah. And I've like yesterday I was in one of our stores and I saw a family come in, husband, wife, 2 kids. The father ordered a biryani, mother ordered a burger, and the kids ordered pizza. And everybody ordered an ice cream at the end. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have a right to win here. To bring like choice in front of the customer without replicating the infrastructure. So we didn't have to put like 5 different places, right? And how can we do it? Because this food court is attached to one of our cloud kitchens. So there we have a right to win. I don't know whether it's a trend or not, but this is a trend we want to shape.
Sure.
We want to create an offline sort of offering where a family can or a group of friends can go somewhere and can have food, by their individual choice, rather than going to a Chinese or a North Indian or a burger joint, all together. So that's something that we are working on, and we believe. We don't know whether it'll catch on or not, but something that we want to invest behind because there we have a right to it.
Got it. Now, that's super helpful to hear. I want to get to some of these, fundamental, I wouldn't say trade-offs, but decisions that you've had to make over the years, right? So I'm guessing in the early years it was establishing brands. Now it is about scale. Over the years it's also been about, which cities to scale versus which cities to go deeper into, how to go international, right? On the brand itself, right? The brand concept that you've come up with, having, Beiruz, Faasos, Avan Story, all of these, you fundamentally maintain that you want to own these brands from the scratch and you want to build it out nationally, one brand mostly, right? Talk to us about that philosophy, what it means to start a brand, what is the research that goes into saying that this is a category deep enough for us to actually launch something in, and then the formula to sort of like launch perhaps, right? You start with a kitchen, you scale it to a couple. I think that'll be super helpful because a lot of this knowledge is not out there, and of course you now know the playbook. So to the extent that you can, if you can share that thought process, it'll be very, very helpful.
Yeah. We made a ton of mistakes here. Over the years. Our first brand outside of Faasos was a continental brand.
Okay.
Called olive trails.
Okay.
And, because we said, okay, this will be very nice to do. And this is how restaurants are built. Somebody thinks, okay, let me do some, fancy thing. And then when it goes to the marketplace, you have no takers, And so many other mistakes we made over time. But I won't go through each one of them. It will take probably a couple of hours if I go through all of them. But in the end, our learning has been, and again, it's an evolving thinking, has been that if a category is large and if it is fragmented, no incumbent, that's the great place to build a brand from scratch. So the way there are a lot of 2x2s at Rebel, by the way. So if you think about, size of category and extent of fragmentation, then your top right is highly fragmented large category. So which means like biryani, Chinese, North Indian, these are everybody, South Indian, everybody in India knows what it is, but there is no incumbent. You can't name anybody who is like pan-India, right?
Yeah.
There, it makes sense to build a brand because you don't have to fight an incumbent or an oligopoly even, right? You can, build it from scratch and you can ride on the category recognition and build the brand. That's how Beiruz happened. In fact, we have 2 biryani brands.
Yeah.
And, that's how Faasos happened. There were no, like everybody knew roles across India, but there was no pan-India, like it was fragmented. It's hindsight because Faasos came even before we came on to this, realization. But that's why we doubled down on Faasos and built it. Then there are categories which are large in size but consolidated, like pizza. We built Oven Story even before this realization, so we kept on. But today, if we have to again build a pizza brand, we probably won't build our own brand. We'd probably license a brand.
Got it.
Like burger is an oligopoly. That's why we didn't do our burger brand and we licensed Wendy's because we are fighting with McDonald's and Burger King. Because consolidated, large category but not fragmented. Right. National chains are there, right? That's how we think about whether to build a brand from scratch or buy a brand or license a brand or partner with a brand and so on. Now, within these brands, so one is which brands to launch. Like health is now growing and becoming large, but no incumbent.
Correct.
Fragmented. That's why we will be building our own brand. We're bringing 500 CP and then, we'll be building it. Now, now within brands, what products to launch, etc. The way we do it is today, we do million+ orders on our own channel. But in a month. But we also have tens of millions of searches. Like, for example, we saw just to bring the philosophy to life, we saw a lot of shawarma searches in Hyderabad. So we launched shawarma in Hyderabad under Faasos. So what product to bring in and what product to attach to which brand comes from, now that we have a large own distribution, comes from what the customers are searching for, what the customers are asking for. Earlier it used to be like anecdotal, let's launch this and see what happens. Okay. But now it has become, over time, it has become more scientific where we can actually see what customers are looking for. We also run regular surveys with our customers saying that, what new brands do you want in your locality? Sure. And we give some options, Marrow, Donuts, Naturals. And we then show this data to our partners and say, okay, let's launch in these locations. So it has become more scientific, more data-driven over time. But that's how we think about it. Let the customers define, what we should do. That's because then we don't have to fight for product market fit. We don't have to literally or pun intended shove things down customers' throat when they don't want it and so on and so forth. So that's how it has evolved for us. Like, for example, a great example is burger wraps that we launched in Faasos. We saw a lot of customers come and look at Faasos menu and then go and buy Wendy's burgers. So we saw that there is an affinity between wraps and burgers. Like people, because it falls in the same quadrant of, quick, convenient meal. So we said, let's launch a category of burger wraps. And that has become like 10% of Faasos incidents overnight. People just loved it, that we put, burgers within a wrap and it becomes non-messy, etc. We created some wacky commercials around it. But yeah, so that's how we think about it. And then once we say, okay, this is what needs to be done, it comes to our Culinary Innovation Center, led by Chef Vijay. And we keep, every Wednesday at Rebel is a tasting day, and that's why, our attrition rates are pretty low because of this one particular fact, that we get to taste a lot of things on Wednesdays, and then it goes into pilot launches and then getting customer feedbacks and then scaling up and so on and so forth. But that's how the journey has been and the learnings have been.
Super interesting, super interesting. Had I known, I would have come on a Wednesday. But
Next time.
If I have to double click on the brands which have, let's say, done well, I'm guessing there's also a revenue concentration across, let's say, the top 5 brands, let's say Beiruz, Oven Story, Faasos, etc. Right? Would you attribute certain things that have gone well in these bits apart from category selection versus, let's say, brands that have not been scaling as well, etc. Also, foundationally, you made this decision, and of course, that's evolved over a period of time, that there should be national brands as opposed to regional brands, right? And that's there's always, let's say, a conflict between either of these, right? One may argue that, okay, biryani across certain regions should be the same versus in other regions should not. But of course, Beiruz has proven that antithesis, which is that, hey, a national brand in biryani is very much possible to scale successfully. How have you thought about some of these? What is the replicating success to a food brand? That's one. And maybe some foundational decisions across food that have worked well in the long run.
See, I think on the first point, we have a unique advantage here, which is we don't have to scale a brand before it reaches product market fit. Because we launch a brand or even a product in 5 locations, 5 kitchens. There is no extra money that we have to spend, right? We don't have to
Cost
put up
of
a
experimentation
store.
is low.
Is zero. Like marginal cost of adding a brand or adding a product is zero for us. No marketing investment, no capex, no nothing, right? Once it reaches product market fit, defined by whether customers are loving it and whether the unit economics is good enough or not. When these 2 boxes are ticked, then only we scale it. So we scale only those brands that have met these 2 criteria.
Got it.
So as a result, we don't have a brand which is scaled and not doing well. But there have been, many brands which got killed at PMF stage.
Got it.
That's the advantage we have, right? We don't have to put up new stores to experiment with a brand, right?
Fair enough.
So that's why, all the brands, so today we have about 9 national brands. All of them are doing well, not because, we've done something extraordinary, but we killed the ones that didn't do well early.
Sure.
So in a way, it is like an experiment factory, and only the ones that have done well and, got customer love and unit economics got scaled.
Got it.
And marketing comes very late, so that's how we build. So that's to answer your first question. So actually, we don't have a very deep concentration. Like, it's not that 2 of our brands drive 60% of our revenue or something, because we only scaled brands that today we have 6 brands more than 150 crore each today.
Got it.
Annual revenue. So that was on the first part. The second part is, first of all, we believe that food brands are built through ubiquity. Like, if you think about globally, McDonald's, why it's a brand? Because you can depend on it in New York, Singapore, London, Delhi, wherever you go, you can depend on a McDonald's. Same with Starbucks, same with Domino's and so on. So there is no, different McDonald's in India. But what is different in every region? They would have some products that are specific to that region. In India would be aloo tikki or whatever. We followed the same formula. So today, if you go to Chennai, Beiruz has a south variety.
Okay.
But we believe the overarching brand should stand for the royal biryani experience. That's why people working in Whitefield, living in Indiranagar, traveling to Delhi, they can all enjoy Beiruz, and they know what to expect, and they get that product when they order. Yeah. So the way we think about it is the experience has to be same. That's how brands are built. But there can be regional nuance based on particular, profile of the customer, or the taste palette of the customer, etc., etc. Like, for example, I'm letting some secret out, but in South, people are rice eaters. In North, people don't eat rice to that extent.
Yeah.
So the proportion of rice and meat are different for Beiruz.
Oh, wow.
Between South and North, because in South India people people love eating their rice, so we have a higher portion of rice in South. So there are these changes that we keep. And then the other thing that we can do, unlike any other probably brand, that we can launch regional varieties. Like, for example, as I was saying, today we've launched Pongal within Lunchbox for South. During Onam, we launched Onam in South within Lunchbox. So we keep doing such things. Yeah.
Yes, so I'd love to hear from you, Jaydeep, on the kitchen part of the story, because as consumers, we get to eat the delightful food, yet we don't get to understand what happens on the back end, and that's perhaps the brilliance of the infrastructure that you've created across 400 plus locations now, which are these cloud kitchens. Talk to us about how the kitchen brilliance happens, what are the nuances, how attrition in kitchens is low, what is the innovation in kitchens with a lot of the smart bots, etc., that are coming up. Would love to hear from you on that.
Yeah. See, I think I would say there are three parts to this whole kitchen business. So one is people. Second is the processes, and the third is the material. Okay, the SKUs, the inventory, etc. So the SKUs is the easier one. We now have a pan-India supply chain, same quality of SKUs reaching our kitchens through an indenting system which is very automated and forecast driven based on our history of data, etc. I would talk about the people and process, which I believe are quite unique at Rebel. First, the process. So when we started Faasos, so there was this one process, which is you make the paratha and you make the filling and roll it up, fundamentally, right? Later on, as we kept adding brands, it started requiring different processes, okay? And then we realized that it is a massive cognitive and physical skill load on people.
Yeah.
So over time, we took process by process, and there is a dedicated team at Rebel which is always thinking about this. How can we reduce skill without reducing quality in our kitchens? And this team is made of people from Amazon with robotics background, automation background, etc., etc. So their job is to take skill out of a very from a culinary process.
Sure.
Fundamentally, if you think about cooking, it's bill of material. What ingredients you use, dispensing, when to add what in what quantity.
Yeah.
And third is a combination of heat and movement. Either use slow flame or fast flame, stir, do a conveyor oven, etc., etc. So all processes are a combination of ingredients, dispensing, and this. So our job is to work on these three pieces and make things less skill dependent. For example, today if you go to a Rebel kitchen, and this has been happening for 10 years now in Rebel kitchens, we have about 20 things to be fried. like a samosa or a falafel and things like that. Now every thing you fry will need a different temperature, different dipping time, different taking up time, and all of that. Earlier, this used to be through alarm clocks. Okay, you press an alarm clock, dip it, take it, etc. Measure your temperature, all of that. Over time, we now move to auto fryers, which means you put the thing in the fryer, you press a button that you are doing falafel, the thing will automatically go down and it's pre-programmed through IoT and it automatically comes. So now we can add a new thing to be fried instantaneously.
Yeah.
Like you bring a new chicken nugget or something and you just set the fryer on that temperature and that dipping time and it happens automatically. Like conveyor ovens. So for giving dum to biryani, it's a core process in biryani, right? Making biryani. How do we do dum? We have retrofitted our conveyor oven through which you put the biryani from one side and it goes to a particular temperature zone when the dum happens and it comes out of the other. So nobody needs to remember how much time to give dum and when to, like earlier, I remember my first biryani chef, I asked him, Chacha, aaj biryani kaise banaye? He was like, वो तो अल्लाह के ऊपर है, मेरे को तो कैसे पता, So he has to take off the lid and look inside and see whether the biryani is done or not. Okay, you can't do that, when you are across, right? So we've created processes around it. Like the biryani has 36 different spices that go in. Like earlier it used to be like chef's magic. Chef would think, okay, now let me put some long, let me put some joitri or whatever. Today we pre-pack these 36 ingredients in sachets. And if you're making a 50 kilo batch, you know how many sachets you have to put in. So through hardware, through processes, etc. So that's a big part of designing kitchens, so to speak. Now the other part is people. And I believe whatever we do on process and inventory, companies that have a distributed operations fail because of a lack of uniform culture. Because, when someone is ordering something in Coimbatore versus Amritsar, the moment of truth is when someone is making your food, right? So if you don't have the cultural underpinning, it's not going to be possible. So we've always kept the kitchen teams at the center of the company. And some statistics and these are people who would be like maybe 12th pass, some of them are graduates, but largely non-graduate people. Today, 83% of our CDO, so we call the head of the kitchen a chief delight officer because he or she is the real CEO of the business. He or she defines, how we are serving our customers with a specific focus on delight. So that's why it's called CDO, Chief Delight Officer. So today we have about 400 Chief Delight Officers, each of them, sort of managing a kitchen. 83% of them started as a trainee today. Wow. So, and today the CDO not only can manage the kitchen, the inventory, the people, the customer delight, but he is extremely financially savvy because today a CDO can draw P&L. Like, what is his or her revenue, what are the costs, what is the variance, cost of delivery, everything. His or her KRA has three parts. So one is customer delight, how delighted his or her customers are. Second is how he's managing the kitchen operations, whether, every T is crossed and every I is dotted, from an operations point of view. And third is financial delivery. So how his P&L is, etc., or her P&L is, and so on and so forth. So this is the part if there is one thing I'm super proud of is how we have. So internally we call it transforming lives. So we've gotten people who are, of that strata, come to our kitchen as team members, and we have changed their lives. And then after CDO, there is area delight manager and then zonal delight manager. This whole, sort of leveling up of people have happened in our company, tremendously over the last 12 years. And we call it internally transforming lives. Take people when they are raw, fresh, and then, change their lives. And a lot of people asked us, including our investors, why don't we employ gig workers? Like, why do we have permanent staff on people? Why do we not have, hourly staff? Or, who would come, get paid, go away, like, a lot of... but we realized that unless we are creating or changing lives for these guys, we won't have that loyalty. And we won't have that, at the end of the day, our customers would be as happy as our employees would be, as delighted as our employees would be. That's why we made a decision, okay, this is where we are not going to compromise. We are going to take people, change their lives, bring about entrepreneurship, call them CDOs or CEOs, and do it like that. And it has, initially it was painstaking. But now, if you think about our bench, so we have 400 CDOs, 400 ACDOs, Assistant Chief Delight Officers, 400 management trainees. So in total, we have a bench strength of 1,200 kitchen CEOs. Tomorrow, when we open 100 new kitchens, these are the people who would be taking over.
Yeah.
And that safeguards us more than anything from scaling fast, and then the pitfalls of scaling fast and across. When we opened Middle East, a lot of the CDOs from India went there and opened that market. So I can go on and on this, but people talk about our AFRs, and our senior management, etc. But I think we've done something right at the kitchen level by creating this cadre. And I think out of everything, people can copy technology, people can copy building a kitchen, a supply chain. But copying a culture at scale is the hardest. And I believe that this is our biggest moat. How we built this team.
That is brilliant to hear. I remember in our last chat also, you distinctly mentioned that attrition across kitchens is perhaps the lowest for us in the industry. And your focus on culture is, of course, stand out across conversations. So I love that. I want to get to how the team culture is also really exemplified at Rebel. But before that, I think this was really helpful, and I want to understand how this extends to the international markets, right? What Rebel has done is truly disruptive, not just in India, but externally. We often wonder that a lot of Indian businesses are, let's say, copycat models of US businesses or developed markets. Rebel is a contrarian in that opinion, right? Like Rebel has set out a market approach and you're scaling it further. And I'm not sure how many people are aware. Irrespective of that, I'd love to understand how you thought about going outside India. Why did that thought come to being, right? Was it a trade-off between there's an opportunity versus depth of market, right? How did you look at these two? And how has that journey been, right? Because I'm guessing food is, again, very diverse in different cultures, let alone different countries. How have you managed that? What is the scale of operations? I'd love to understand that piece from you better, Jaydeep.
Yeah. See, I think not everything went well.
Okay.
To be honest. Mm-hmm. Like our Indonesia business, we actually closed that business. So, because that is exactly to your point, completely different culture. We went there. We had a partner in Gojek, which was, let's say the Swiggy equivalent or Zomato equivalent of Indonesia. We went to Indonesia as a JV. Mm-hmm. And we did really well in terms of, scaling up to some extent and all of that. But in the end, it was too alien a market for us. And Gojek also wanted out of that once they went public. And that has been our biggest learning, that when we enter a market, we should not be dependent on one channel of distribution, which was the mistake we made in Indonesia, where we were, closely coupled with Gojek. And when they didn't want to pursue that business, it was too far for us to manage. And so as a result, our philosophy now is when we open an international markets, we open, Middle East a couple of years back. We wanted to go non-exclusive. We wanted to build the brands, be present in all channels, build our own channel. And that learning has really worked well for us in UAE. And see, the way our business is structured, as I was saying in the beginning, there is a platform and then there are brands and then there's distribution. As long as the platform is strong, we can actually do any cuisine in the world.
Yeah.
Right? We can do an Asian, we can do a health, we can do, pizza, anything under the sun. Maybe not yet sushi and things like that, but largely, large swaths of cuisine we can do from that platform, which helped us in UAE. In fact, in UAE, our top 3 brands are Mandarin Oak, which is an Asian brand, and it's doing like really well. And last week there was a dim sum festival done by Mandarin Oak, and people just loved. We launched the crunchiest dim sum, like you associate dim sum with like softness and all of that. We launched a completely crazy product in Dubai, and people just loved it, and because we had the platform, we have the culinary know-how, we can do this. So Mandarin Oak is a big brand in Dubai for us. Second is 500 CP, 500 Calorie Project, which has done, tremendously well. The third is actually a burger, a brand that we built in Dubai, because in Dubai we saw a trend where there were these, mass market burgers like McDonald's and Burger Kings, and there was a very high-end burgers like pickle or things like that, something like a Louis burger in India. And there was this, and Dubai is a big burger eating market. UAE as a whole is a big burger eating market. We spotted a gap where, a reasonably priced but gourmetish burger, which tastes like real burger and not your, processed patty kind of a thing. And we launched a burger called Messi Burger last year. And that brand has also done really well. So, the philosophy is same. Like, you go to a market, meet the customer where they are. If they love burgers and Dubai, by the way, also loves biryani, and Beiruz is one of the highest rated biryanis in Dubai and Sharjah. So this is a market which loves Asian food, loves burger, loves Indian food. So we've, tailored our offerings to that because of the platform we have, and that helped us do that market. In London, actually, which is our other market, where we have 3 brands, Faasos, Beiruz, and Lunchbox. Again, Indian is a big, category in London and very fragmented. There is no, I lived in London and the biryani really sucked. 10 years back in my earlier job, and I had this thing about, bringing Beiruz to London about a few years back, and we finally did it last year. Today, Beiruz has about 40 locations in London.
Wow.
Doing really well. Again, a market where Indian food is, a big category, but there are no incumbent players. Brits love Indian and they don't get the best Indian. So it's a perfect place to build a brand, launch a brand, and export a brand. So, but still early days. We'll see how it goes. So that's how, we are building, one market at a time, depending on the nuance of that market, what we can bring to the table, and things like that.
Got it. I think that's super helpful. I think the point to the right to win, right? Like, as long as you have that platform, you have that expertise, and if a market makes sense, you have the ability to launch and then scale it as per the market. I think that's super interesting. And this is in its truest form. I think people talk about how consumer is difficult to build from India for the world, but this is a very strong exemplification that it is possible if you have the right capabilities. So I love that. As we conclude the conversation, I want to get to the people aspect of Rebel itself, right? I think a couple of distinct things that stand out, and I remember talking about this previously as well. But the fact that, hey, the culture is extremely strong. The people who've left Rebel, rave about it, like Revant of Mosaic Wellness, Shashank of Whole Truth. I've hosted both of them on the podcast, and they have themselves mentioned about you and the rest of the team. The fact that the initial set of EIRs became co-founders of the company, and you sort of made the decision to elevate them because they've been true owners of the brand. Talk to us about how you look at some of these things, right? I don't think they get spoken of enough, but in the long-term vision of building an institution, they are as important as possible. So I would love to understand your people ideology, how you've looked at it over the years, how has that evolved over a period of time, and why is that important to begin with, right? And how do you truly look at it from a long-term lens, right? It feels like you're still like, as focused as one can possibly be. It's been like 12, 13 years, yet like your head is down to build this long-term institution. How do you look at it all?
Yeah. See, again, learned the hard way. When we started Rebel, back then Faasos, my first instinct was to hire from, food industry, because that's how we started. But then my couple of big learnings, So one is, over time, my personal journey has gone from how to what to who, over time. Like initially I would be thinking how to do something, how to open a kitchen, how to open a market. Then I realized that I shouldn't be doing that. I should let people do that and should define the what, which is, this is where we would be going, we'd go international, then someone else will figure out the how. And then over time I realized that my job is actually to decide the who, and then that person will define the what and the how. That's how I have felt, the empowering, that's why this job is very interesting to me even today, because people talk about business scaling, but I think through mistakes, I have, this has been my scale-up journey. In a nutshell, that I was making people's life miserable at one point in time, and then I realized that that is not the right way to do it. So I made that change, etc. So that's one evolution that I have gone through over time, this how to what to who. And today I have another 2x2 to think about who should do what, and there are some jokes around it in the company. Like if you think about, one axis is lazy and hardworking, and then the other axis is stupid and clever. Okay. So stupid, clever, lazy, hardworking. I have realized over time, the most dangerous are the stupid and hardworking. It might sound bad, but because they can really harm your company. Because they'll be doing the wrong things, but with all, zeal, etc. But the real pillars of your company are, the clever hardworkings and then the clever lazies. I believe if you have to, people who can operate at scale are clever and lazy. Because when they are lazy, they are not trying to figure everything out by brute force. They are trying to create a system, they are trying to create a process, they are trying to create a leverage through which things will get done. So these are people who are tremendous to lead large teams, operations or, business units, etc. But then hardworking and clever people are the ones that can do 0 to 1 journeys. Like when you start a new business or a new geography, you need people who are clever, but also need hardworking, who will roll their sleeves up and, open that shutter in the morning and sweep the floor and so on and so forth. So again, I think maybe I'm generalizing too much, but having this framework helps me give the right people the right responsibilities today. Because as a company, we have a fairly large, stable business that is growing, but also new green shoots that are coming up, and that's why I've tried to think about. So that's the second piece that I've learned over time. How to define these who's. The third piece about things like culture building and co-founders, if you ask co-founders, etc. So again another 2x2 is like you have experience on one axis and you have what I call founder mentality on the other axis. Now, a founder mentality has nothing to do with a founder. It's a mentality, right? So what is a founder mentality? A founder mentality is three things. So one is obsessed with problem solving. Like you give these people a problem, they are energized. That's a founder mentality. Most founders are like that. And founders, I don't mean, entrepreneurs. I mean, anybody can have this mentality. They love problem solving. That's number one. Second is very high level of ownership. Like feels like you give someone a problem and that person will own that problem, and go to any length and treat it as his or her own own business, own child or whatever. So that's ownership. A third is a frontline mentality, like customer obsession, field obsession and things like that. The founders are like that. They don't want to sit in an ivory tower or a corner office. They want to be close to the customer, close to the field, etc. When you start a company, I realized that you need low experience, high founder mentality. Because if you have high experience, the problem is you come with baggage and you come with, especially when you're starting a McDonald franchisee, maybe you need experience. But when you're starting something new, unique, you need people with low experience, freshers, but with high founder mentality, right? Beginner's mind, as they call. There's this thing about Zen and beginner's mind. When you have a beginner's mind, you are very receptive. Your mind is open. You are willing to experiment. You are willing to challenge the status quo. You need characters like that when you're starting up. And that's what happened with us with FERs. We recruited 7 like high founder mentality, low experience people. 5 of them are still here. A couple of them went out and started their own company. Revant and Shashank are great examples. So I believe Kalola and I die if we are like bunch of couple of lazy Bengalis. But one thing we've done right is we picked this group well. And not that we knew all these things back then, but over time we realized that this. And then we replicated it. There are now many people in the ranks of Rebel who are high founder mentality, but close to zero experience, who came on board with beginner's mind, picked up businesses, ran them, etc., etc. Over time, I realized that there are some things in a business where you need experience, like finance. There's no point reimagining the balance sheet, So, and then we tried to hire people with high founder mentality but high experience. So that's how Piyush came on board. Piyush, our CFO, is the Sherpa of our company. Now, what does a Sherpa do in high altitude climbing? It regulates your oxygen. So we are this crazy bunch of guys who can go in any direction, but Piyush regulates us. Piyush regulates the oxygen or the cash. And he has been a tremendous addition. And a couple of others. Our CTO, again, we needed someone who really understood technology deeply, highly experienced, but with founder mentality. It doesn't mean that we've not made mistakes. So I've had my share of recruitments where we hired people who fell in the wrong boxes, but then we corrected those. I feel good about the management today and a couple of layers also down the line. We have a lot of people with high founder mentality and experience and non-experience both. Anyways, long answer, but this is how we've tried to build the company. And you talked about long-term vision. So I believe as a business, we are drawing on an infinite canvas. because tomorrow food trends will change. People are having biryani, tomorrow they'll more health, protein rich food, or I don't know, if I look 100 years from now, food trends would be completely different from what it is today. But people will still be eating. Food won't be downloaded anytime soon. So it's an infinite canvas, right?
Yeah.
And I would like Rebel to have these characters who are high founder mentality, who can reimagine this, because we're not stuck to a brand, we are not stuck to a cuisine. We are, distribution will change, technology will change, So you need such characters to, take us beyond my time, beyond the current management's time, into the future, and keep drawing on this canvas. That has been the endeavor. And sometimes we did well, sometimes we didn't do well, but at least the endeavor has been, build a company where it keeps on, this drawing on this infinite canvas keeps on happening. So yeah.
I love that. I think that's super helpful to understand, because I think you really summarized it in the best sense possible, right? Like long-term institutional building requires people, and how, what, who analogy is really, really helpful. I love how you have like a 2x2 for everything, and I want to come to that. But the last part about this is, Jaydeep, like there are these hits and misses in a founder's life, right? Is it possible for you to maybe summarize some things that were a surprise to you getting into this, because you are a founder for the first time of such a large company? So by just benefit of hindsight, we'd love to understand what are some decisions that you went in prepared and really worked, versus what are decisions that you had to learn on the go, were surprising insights, were things that you didn't imagine would work out the way they did, and you had to just like prepare yourself as you went ahead. So that would be super helpful to summarize.
Yeah, I think many such instances. I think I had 10 mistakes for one correct decision, right? And a couple of things that come to mind is, we had this inkling that we have a kitchen, so we can do many cuisines. Okay, but so what we tried doing was, we launched pizza under Faasos, and that didn't work out, because people. And then later on, the learning here is, in food, people associate a brand with a product. So Domino's is pizza, Starbucks is coffee, McDonald's is burger. There is no famous multi-cuisine restaurant in the world. Right? So people didn't believe that Faasos can make pizza.
Yeah.
So we launched, because we were very confident of the product. So we launched pizza under a pizza brand, and that worked. So, we went in saying that, okay, this will work, because people move between those 4 boxes, so they'll sometimes have pizzas. Why not Faasos? But then, this was. So we've been proven wrong, and something else was a surprising answer. But in hindsight, it makes sense, right? So there were many such. Like, for example, we had this business called CBLD, which is Curated Best Local Delights. Where what we tried to do was, I talked about these partnerships with Naturals Ice Cream and Taco Bell, etc. We tried to do, okay, where our kitchen was, within 100-meter radius, are there other brands which are very nice? And can we club them with our delivery? And we were very confident that this will work. But then the logistics was a nightmare. The technology building was a nightmare. And then we realized, no, we have to host them inside our kitchens if we want to go in that direction. So there were many such, things that we thought something, but something else worked out.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. I think I just want a summary of some of those decisions, but this has been extremely fruitful. I think the entire business is very clear. I want to end with just a couple of questions on your founder persona, because I think that's also very distinct and very interesting for the viewers. One of the things there is the fact that you're a mountaineer, and that's something that you've channelized over the years. And you were just telling me before the podcast that you went on a 1-month expedition recently to Patagonia. Can you perhaps talk about like how some of the personal things that you do directly attribute to the founder that you are? How do you stay focused across like a multi-decade journey? This is your 2nd decade into the business, and it feels like there's going to be more into the business that's going to be required, the infinite canvas, as you mentioned. what are some other characteristics plus the mountaineer in you that help you become the founder that you are?
Well, I think first of all, I love mountaineering for many reasons, but I think the biggest would be that when I'm on a high altitude terrain, just focusing on my climb or walk, I'm just with myself. And I think, you know, startup is a team sport, and we to lead, manage people, etc., etc. What mountaineering gave me, and things associated with mountaineering trekking gave me, was time to reflect. And I'm a naturally a reflective person, because I go on a trip every year now, on an expedition or a high altitude trek. I train throughout the year, okay, and my runs are always this. I'm always in this reflective mode, like thinking about what will happen, what how the industry will evolve, or specific problems at a particular time, etc., etc. So I think that's how this is intertwined. Mountaineering, running, all these things give me time to reflect on the business. I am a person who is always thinking about business, even while I'm in shower. But these are times where a lot of my light bulbs came from some when I'm on some of this. That's how it's intertwined. The second thing is, because I'm an introvert, my favorite mode of expression is writing. And that's nothing to do with mountaineering, but as you said, what other thing that you do. So I'm a compulsive writer, and long form writer. So I sometimes I would send an email to Rebel All, and people have told me it's too long, etc., and all of that. But I keep, if I have some thought, the best way for me to express that thought is by doing a long form writing and then send it. And some of this has been, very similar to Amazon. We don't have PowerPoint presentations in our company, in spite of the fact that I was a McKinsey consultant where we, change the world one PowerPoint slide at a time. But today at Rebel, it's all long form writing. Meetings happen through narratives and so on and so forth. So that's another way, probably how my persona and then the company kind of got influenced by each other to some extent. The third thing I would say is, there is this, I'm a big fan of Howard Marks, and I'm basically a autodidact, which means that I was a very bad student, but I learned from reading, watching YouTube video. I learned swimming at the age of 32 by watching YouTube, and then I taught my daughter who became a swimmer in her school. So I have this habit of learning by myself through watching, reading, and things like that. So one of my favorite authors is Howard Marks. Runs Oak Tree Capital. Some of his writings is tremendous. So he has this philosophy of, again, a 2x2, where he says, people agree with you, people don't agree with you on one axis, and then you are right and you are wrong on the other axis. So when do you make the abnormal return? When you are right and people don't agree with you.
Okay.
It's like when you invest in a stock. If everybody thinks it's a great stock, it's already priced, you don't make money.
Correct.
But you make money when nobody else knows that stock is great, and you prove to be right. Okay. And I believe this applies to everything in life. Like, my favorite example is Gandhi and non-violence. When Gandhi started non-violence, nobody agreed that non-violence can be a way of revolution, right? But his impact, and later on, a lot of other people did non-violence, but because he was the first guy to come up with it, that's another extreme example. But at Rebel, I have realized that every time we took a non-consensus decision, and many times we were proven wrong, where nothing happens. But the times when we've proven right, it created windfall for us. Great benefit of a non-consensus right decision is you don't have competitors, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're in a place where everybody agreed that cloud kitchen is a great business, then or internet, then we would have 30 competitors all funded, and we would be like, and that's why Bezos said, the real secret of a successful business is the ability to be misunderstood for a very long period of time. And it's all that same ballpark of non-consensus, misunderstood. People don't agree with you,
But you are right.
but you are right. Of course. And out of 10 times, 9 times you may be wrong. But that one time you are right. And I'm a big believer of that. And that's why, I think at Rebel, we build the DNA in a way that, these non-consensus, people don't agree with kind of projects get done. Sometimes they don't go anywhere, but at times they do something and then, magic happens.
I love that. We should have probably started with that question because I think there's a lot of depth to that, like a combination of reflection, writing, and learning by yourself. And the last framework that you provided could be the secret to so much. You don't know this probably, and I wanted to mention it, but the moment you mentioned writing in my last podcast as well, is since when I have started writing, I still don't write long form a lot, but I try to codify much of what I do now because of that actually. So I have a lot to attribute there, but I think there's a lot of food for thought for anybody listening. I think all very helpful frameworks and all something that, I was talking to Harsh of Christine before this, like right before I was coming to the conversation, and he was like, Jaydeep is great. And any person I mentioned that, I'm hosting Jaydeep, they mentioned that you're great because of, I'm guessing, some of these reasons. So thank you so much for sharing. I think this is super helpful. I'd love to maybe on the antithesis of this, love to understand what is the persona beyond, like, so in a world where Rebel would not exist, what would Jaydeep, the ex-consultant, business school going person be doing? Like if you could give me an alternative world where, let's say, Rebel was not that consumed all of your mind, what would you be doing? What would your friends say about you? That's maybe one thing that I'd love to know before we go to the last question.
One of two things. So maybe I would be a teacher.
Okay.
My parents are both teachers, and and in school I was like, out of 10 subjects I'll be pathetic in 9, but that one subject I would be good at, I'd be teaching the entire class. People say those things to me. Even now, I love, be in front of a class and talk to the class. So I did a session with the INSEAD guys who came to Bombay a couple of weeks back. So I probably would be a teacher. Or, I would do something around outdoors. So maybe do a decathlon kind of a business, or a high altitude trekking company or something like that. I'm trying to do some of it through my friends.
Oh, lovely.
But that probably would be the other one.
Yeah, North Face for India.
Or a Patagonia.
Patagonia for India. Yeah.
Or India. Yeah.
That'd be
Something like
amazing.
that.
Yeah. No, this has been great. I think I've loved every aspect of it. Actually, I have a second last question, and this is that it's the Stanford essay, which is what matters to you and why. We've spoken a ton about the business, we've spoken a ton about you, but I have to understand what lies at the genesis of it, right? Some of which you mentioned right now. But if you had to summarize, like, this is what fundamentally drives me to do what I do today, get up every day, run the ship at Rebel, grow, build on that infinite canvas, what is that answer?
I think, building something for the long term is a core, let's say, motivating factor. I think, but that's a very any entrepreneur would like to do that, right?
Yeah.
But I think within that, building something long term, it goes without saying, if we are known for changing something in this world, that would be tremendous, because, a long term business can be built by doing something that is already there in this world, right? For example, a Domino's or a McDonald's franchise could be a very long term business, right? Or a Hamleys franchise, I don't know. But that won't change anything in this world. Right? But I think what motivates me and most probably a lot of people at Rebel is that we go home thinking that we are doing something that will change something. That will change an industry, that will change how people eat, that will change the economic characteristics of a particular business or whatever. I think the intersection of building something long term, which is fundamentally very different from what people have seen in this world, would be the biggest motivation factor. That's why, it's interesting. Every day is interesting. Some days are bad, of course, but overall it's interesting.
And were you always conditioned this way, or is it a trained muscle?
I don't know. I think I was, as I said, I was never a mainstream
Person.
Fundamentally, the subjects that I would take fascination on, the books I would read, would always be a little bit different.
Yeah. Something different in the world. That's a great takeaway. I remember that. If you had to paint us a picture on the North Star for Rebel, let's say certain timeline, 5-10 years, whatever, what would that look like?
See, I think, as I was saying, those 3 layers of our business, the platform, the brands, the distribution, it actually also forms a circle.
Okay.
So the stronger our platform be, the more brands we can bring in,
Absolutely.
which strengthens our distribution, which gives us more insight to strengthen the platform.
Right.
So this is the flywheel of Rebel Foods. Okay. And a lot of people ask me how many countries, how many markets, how many stores, but I actually think in this flywheel that every passing year, if your operating system becomes stronger, which could be more kitchens, better technology, more culinary innovation, if you can keep adding great brands, like I'm now in discussion with a couple of US brands to bring them to India and 500 CP to India, etc. And, building the distribution muscle, as long as we keep doing, I actually don't keep a number sort of goal for 5 years, 10 years. If every year, if we can keep churning this flywheel, it will compound, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the canvas is infinite. If you keep compounding, and as they say, you always overestimate the short term, underestimate the long term.
Yeah.
In 10 years, this would be something phenomenal if we can keep churning the flywheel.
Any milestone at all, like an IPO, anything on the vision board that you think will come true?
See, IPO is definitely on the cards, but I look at IPO as a funding event for us. Because if you look at our cap table, now we have KKR and Temasek, Sequoia for our longest time. We already behave a little bit like, disciplined custodians of capital. Otherwise, we won't be here. So I don't think life would change tremendously when we become public in terms of, like, we have, for the last 12 years, we have audited by Big Four. We have S4 HANA as an ERP system. So there are things from a governance point of view, etc., we believe will not change much. And we would, even if we become public, it will be my earnest endeavor to tell the investors a long-term story rather than a quarterly story. And we won't change as a company. Whatever happens to the stock price, which is not under my control, I can control churning this flywheel for Rebel Foods, and that will be my focus and my team's focus, and stock price would be an outcome. And I have told this to all my investors, and that is how we will behave even after being public. But we can raise a certain amount of money and fuel our ambition So I'll, further. So that's why I look at, doing an IPO as a financing event for us more than anything else. And it is on the cards. It'll probably happen in the next couple of years.
Got it. Got it. No, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. The last question, Jaydeep, is one that is standard across the podcast, but one where we go down memory lane. The idea is to condense all of the learnings and perhaps, help us with that. So we usually end up going to a distinct time in the person's history. So let's say when Faasos was starting and you started with the QSR model, this is before you came up with the concept of cloud kitchens, scaling it. If you could condense everything that you know today and tell yourself on that day, right? What would that look like?
You mean the story of Rebel Foods in a few words, or
The learnings, like knowing what you know today, if you could just give yourself the benefit of hindsight back in the day, right? So that you could supercharge growth or supercharge the journey in some shape or form. The idea being that we want to just benefit from the last 13, 14 years in perhaps a couple of minutes. What would you tell yourself if you could? And this is not about things that didn't work. It's just about like knowing what you know today and giving yourself that benefit.
See, I think I would probably be, probably be putting more time understanding India as a market. That would be my first one, because this couple of big things. So one is this real estate labor equation I was talking about. It was not clear to me. If it were clear to me today, if we start again, it is clear to me that India infrastructure is costly, labor is cheap, which is exactly opposite in the US. So it's a very different market. Number one. Number two, in India, value of money is higher than value of time. In a highly developed world, value of time is higher than value of money. And over time, I've realized in India, value of money is greater than value of time, which is changing, which is the biggest indicator that India is becoming a developed country. It's on the path. That's why quick commerce is growing. But for the longest time, I have seen value of money to be higher than value of time. So I would keep that in mind when we start. I would start again. That's from a India as a market perspective. You have to start the business again. Secondly, I would treat my role as a friction remover for growth. Like, I went to this, and this has been a seminal moment for Rebel. If I have to tell one story about, the biggest light bulb I had in my Rebel journey was this. So I went to a Sequoia conference, now Peak 15, that time Sequoia, and Sequoia's, Tendulkar was the chief guest, and Doug Leone came. He was the Sequoia CEO at that point in time. So there were two rooms. They divided the founders in two rooms. One room was for tech companies. The other room was for consumer companies. They put us in the consumer room. That was okay, But then Doug came to our room and said something that changed everything for Rebel. He said the job of a CEO, he showed a river with like stones in the river. He said, how do we get the river to flow faster is remove the stones. You remove friction from a business, and that should be the biggest job of a CEO. That got me thinking. Both Kallol and I were there. That night we were sitting in our room. We were thinking about many things about Rebel. That time, Faasos was there, and how to. And then that night I realized that the biggest friction in our business was the real estate, and how real estate on the high street, which was pulling our company down. The rental costs were like going through the roof, and we didn't know what to do. If I can make real estate redundant, then we have a future. And that led to the idea of going the first floor, reducing rental cost. Now these things are called cloud kitchen, etc. But this is the central insight. And when I start, if I had this insight, then maybe The rebel journey could be condensed in by half a decade or something like that.
Got it. I love that. I think all of those reasons and learnings are very, very helpful. This has been such a pleasure. I think you've been one of my favorite guests on the show, and I've had the privilege of hosting you earlier. And this conversation is a testament to that. The structured thinking, the evolved thought process, the learnings to build a long term business and truly do something that is not been done before, is a category leader, disruptor in its truest sense. Rebel is an example that will inspire many individual young founders in the country to do something disruptive. And I want to thank you for building that, doing what you do, and thank you for spending time with us. I think this has been full of learning. I have personally, after all my research, also learned a ton through this conversation. And I think I have you to thank for that. Thank you so much for your time, Jaydeep. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure talking to you. Your questions bring out things that I don't get to talk about, in most settings. So the pleasure was mine.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Awesome.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.